Hello, dear students. NEET Shala, trust of 1000 NEET aspirants on the hands of NEET Shala. Today, we are going to have a session on breathing and exchange of gases. And this session is going to be based on NCERT, Biology NCERT book. Also, we will have a quiz at 9 pm on Telegram. You can connect to NEET Shala via Telegram app. You have to download this app from Play Store. You can also connect to us on Facebook and Instagram. And you can also download the NEET Shala app from Play Store. And one more good news. At the end of the session, there is a DIY, do it yourself question, which you have to solve and comment below in the comment section. The first 3 winners, their names I'll personally be announcing on the 9 pm quiz today. Okay. So, respiratory organs. Mechanism of breathing vary among different groups of animals depending mainly on their habitats and level of organization. Now in the next section, NCERT has given the examples which I have arranged in a tabular form. These are the organisms and this is the way they respire. Lower invertebrates like sponges, coelenterata, and flatworms will exchange oxygen with CO2 by simple diffusion over their entire body surface. Earthworm will use moist cuticle. Insects have a network of tubes called the tracheal tubes to transport atmospheric air within the body. And most of the aquatic arthropods and mollusks will use gills. Remember these things: lower invertebrates, simple diffusion; earthworm, moist cuticle; insects, tracheal tubes; aquatic arthropods and mollusks, gills. Among vertebrates, fishes use gills, whereas reptiles, birds, and mammals respire through lungs. Fishes will use gills, reptiles, birds, and mammals will respire through lungs. Amphibians like frogs can respire through their moist skin also, and mammals have a well-developed respiratory system. This roughly written, let me clean it. I'll draw it once again. The human respiratory system. Just a second, let me clean it. The human respiratory system. Human respiratory system will look at the path. So, the path I'm telling you all first: the external nostrils, then through the nasal passage. Please write this with me: nasal chamber, then pharynx, then to trachea, trachea via larynx. From trachea, they will move to primary bronchi, secondary bronchi, tertiary bronchi, bronchioles, and finally to alveoli. This is the pathway according to NCERT. I'll read it. See, we have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lips. It leads to nasal chamber through the nasal passage. As I showed you, the nasal chamber opens into pharynx, a portion of which is common passage for food and air. The pharynx opens through larynx region into trachea. Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in sound production and hence is called the sound box. Wait, let me write with you all. This will help you more. The weight is given in NCERT. The same way we will continue to write. We have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lip. It leads to nasal chamber through the nasal passage. The nasal chamber opens into pharynx, a portion of which is common passage for food and air. So pharynx. The pharynx opens through the larynx. From larynx, the pharynx will open into trachea. Look here, trachea. Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in the sound production and hence is called the sound box. During swallowing, glottis can be covered by a thin elastic cartilaginous flap called epiglottis to prevent the entry of food into larynx. Epiglottis is a thin cartilaginous flap. It is not bony, it is cartilaginous. Trachea is a straight tube extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity which divides at the level of T5, fifth thoracic vertebra, into right and left primary bronchioles. Each bronchi undergoes repeated division to form secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles, ending up in a very thin terminal bronchioles. The trachea, primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi and initial bronchiole are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. Cartilaginous rings are incomplete. Each terminal bronchiole gives rise to a number of thin, irregular walled and vascularized bag-like structure called alveoli. The branching network of bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli comprise the lungs. Now wait. So the pathway I told you from external nostrils to via nasal passage to nasal chamber, then to pharynx, then to trachea via the larynx, then primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi, then bronchioles, and then your alveoli. This is clear? Where is the space for larynx? Yes. About larynx, I'll tell you a few points. Larynx, also you know it as voice producing organ. Larynx is a cartilaginous box. Larynx, please write this with me. Larynx is a cartilaginous box and the major four cartilages of which the larynx comprises, I'm going to write their names. First is thyroid cartilage. Second is cricoid cartilage. Third is arytenoid, arytenoid, arytenoid cartilage. And fourth one is cartilage of Santorini. Okay, now these two, thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage, they are one in number, means they are single, whereas these two are two in number. Clear? Thyroid and cricoid are one in number, arytenoid and Arytenoid cartilage and cartilage of Santorini are two in number, that is, they are one pair, whereas thyroid cartilage and cricoid cartilage are one in number. And next important thing, the first three cartilages, that is thyroid, cricoid, and arytenoid, they are made up of hyaline. Hyaline. They are hyaline cartilage, and cartilage of Santorini is elastic cartilage. Elastic cartilage. Elastic cartilage. And the largest among these are thyroid cartilage, which is largest. Thyroid cartilage is largest. And signet ring shaped is cricoid cartilage. Signet, S-I-G-N-E-T, signet ring shaped. Signet ring shaped cartilage is cricoid cartilage. So this was about hyaline, a little extra knowledge which you should know. So till here we have read. Now next, we have two lungs which are covered by a double-layered pleura with pleural fluid between them. It reduces friction on the lung surface. The outer pleural membrane is in close contact with the thoracic lining, whereas the inner pleural membrane is in contact with the lung surface. Pleural membrane, the outer membrane which is in contact with the thoracic part, is known as parietal pleura. P-A-R-I-E-T-A-L, parietal pleura. Whereas the inner pleural membrane is known as visceral pleura. V-I-S-C-R-A-L. Visceral pleura is in contact with the lung surface, and the outer pleural membrane is in contact with the thoracic lining. और एक बात बताऊं, their origin, do you know the origin of the pleural membrane? They are derived from mesoderm. Pleural membrane are mesodermal in origin. So this was about pleura. About alveoli we will discuss a little, but at the end. The parts starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles constitute the conducting part, whereas the alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory or exchange part of respiratory system. The conducting part, very important, the conducting part transports atmospheric air into the alveoli, clears it from foreign particles, humidifies, and also brings the air to the body temperature. Very important. Who does this conducting part? An exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and atmospheric air. See, I've shown you the structure. Nostrils. Wait. Let me clean it a little. Nostrils, then from nasal passage to nasal chamber to pharynx to via larynx to trachea to bronchi to bronchioles to alveoli. This structure I have shown you all. So the part starting with external nostrils up to the terminal bronchiole constitute the conducting part, and the alveoli and their ducts form the respiratory or the exchange part of the respiratory system. This last one will form the respiratory part. And the conducting part transports the functions of conducting part. First, transports atmospheric air into the alveoli. Second, clears it from foreign particles, and third, humidifies and also brings the air to body temperature, which is important. The lungs are situated in the thoracic chamber, which is anatomically an airtight chamber. The thoracic chamber is formed dorsally by vertebral column, ventrally by sternum, laterally by ribs, and on lower side by dome-shaped diaphragm. Thoracic chamber, airtight chamber, is formed dorsally by vertebral columns, ventrally by sternum, and laterally by ribs, and the lower side by dome-shaped diaphragm. The anatomical setup of the lung in thorax is such that any change in the volume of thoracic cavity will be reflected in the lung pulmonary cavity. Such an arrangement is essential for breathing as we cannot directly alter pulmonary volume. You know, lungs do not have muscles. Lungs do not have muscles. Now look here. Oh my god, once again a dirty diagram. मैम को बोर्ड गंदा करना बहुत पसंद है, isn't it? मैम को बोर्ड गंदा करना बहुत पसंद है, but now I'm cleaning also. Just a second, wait. So what is this? This is the diagram from NCERT book. Look here, epiglottis. Oh, wait. Epiglottis, larynx, trachea, pleural membrane, and in between these yellow lines are pleural fluid. These are bronchi, and these circles are alveoli. This is the diagram. I think everybody knows this. It's easy. What is important here, what I want to tell you all is, look now. This is the right lung. This is the left lung. Okay? Right lung and left lung. Right lung has 3 lobes. Right lung has how many lobes? 3 lobes. Do you want to see how? It will be, one will be like this and the other will be coming out from here. 1, 2, 3. So right lung has how many lobes? 3 lobes, whereas the left lung will have 2 lobes. Left lung will have 2 lobes. Let me show you, just a second. Just a second, I'm showing you. Look here. The left lung has 2 lobes. 1, 2. So right lung has 3 lobes. Left lung has 2 lobes. Left lung is lighter. Right lung is heavier. Clear? Till here it's clear? Okay. Now, again the lines of NCERT. Respiration involves following steps: breathing or pulmonary ventilation, by which atmospheric air is drawn in and CO2 rich alveolar air is released out. Diffusion of gases O2 and CO2 across the alveolar membrane. Transport of gases by blood. Diffusion of O2 and CO2 between blood and tissues. Utilization of O2 by the cells for catabolic reaction and resultant release of CO2. These steps are involved in respiration. You know only one thing. Breathing is also known as pulmonary ventilation. Now the questions time. Tracheal rings. Tracheal rings are complete or incomplete? Yes, I have told you this. Complete or incomplete? They are incomplete. Tracheal rings are incomplete. Epiglottis. Epiglottis is made up of bone or cartilage? I've asked you this question. Tell me, epiglottis is made up of bone or cartilage? It is made up of cartilage. And tracheal rings are dorsally incomplete. Okay, add it. Dorsally incomplete. Which of the following shows branchial respiration? I have just taught you aquatic arthropods and mollusks. Cartilage incomplete. Dash part brings air to the body. This you have to find. This you have to find from. I've just taught you, this is direct line of NCRT. Respiratory part, conducting part, exchange part. Which part brings air to the body? Should I show you once again? The conducting part transports the atmospheric air into the alveoli, clears it from foreign particles, humidifies, and also brings the air to body temperature. Exchange part is the site of actual diffusion of O2. So, which part brings air to the body temperature is the question. So, which part brings air to the body temperature? Conducting part. Conducting part. I've taught you, so here also conducting part. And respiratory part is also known as exchange part. And sponges, ये कहाँ से आ गया? God knows. Pulmonary ventilation means, I've just told you, just did I tell you, pulmonary ventilation means breathing. Breathing is pulmonary ventilation. Okay, this space I have left for diagrams. This we have done. Larynx. Mechanism of breathing. Breathing involves two stages: inspiration, during which atmospheric air is drawn in, and expiration, by which the alveolar air is released out. Wait, I'll tell you one thing here. Look here. Thoracic cage. Thoracic cage. Now, I've already told you, in mammalian lung, muscles are absent. Muscles are absent in mammalian lung. Now, please excuse me. Covering of thoracic cavity makes thoracic cage. Now, anterior surface will have clavicle bones and the neck. Posterior surface will have diaphragm. Dorsal surface will have vertebral column and ribs. Ventral surface will have sternum plus ribs. And the lateral surface will have ribs. This was about thoracic cage. And diaphragm is found in mammals and crocodiles also. First point, in mammalian lungs, muscles are absent. Second point, I told you about thoracic cage. And third point, I'm telling you about diaphragm, that diaphragm is a muscular septum found in mammals and crocodiles. Breathing involves two stages: inspiration, during which atmospheric air is drawn in, and expiration, by which alveolar air is released out. Alveolar air is released out. And intercostal muscles will be two types: external intercostal muscle and internal intercostal muscle. Inspiration starts when this contracts. Means, by the contraction in this muscle, in which muscle? In external intercostal muscle, ribs and sternum shift outward and upward. So thoracic volume increases in dorsoventral axis, and so they help in inspiration. Let's read it. Movement of air into and out of the lung is carried out by creating a pressure gradient between lung and the atmosphere. Inspiration can occur if pressure within the lung is less than the atmospheric pressure. Pressure in lung is less than the pressure in atmosphere. Only then inspiration will start. Negative pressure should be there in the lung with respect to the atmospheric pressure. Similarly, expiration takes place when intrapulmonary pressure is higher than atmospheric pressure. When pressure in lungs will be more than pressure in atmosphere, then we will expire. Okay, diaphragm is a specialized set of muscles. Oh, sorry. Diaphragm and a specialized set of muscles, external and internal intercostal between the ribs, help in generation of such gradients as I told you now. This external intercostal muscles. Inspiration is initiated by contraction of diaphragm, which increases the volume of thoracic chamber in the anterior posterior axis. So, wait. Contraction of diaphragm increases the volume of thoracic chamber in the anterior posterior axis. The contraction of external intercostal muscles lifts up the ribs and sternum, causing an increase in the volume in the dorsoventral axis. I told you, diaphragm, anterior posterior axis, and the external intercostal muscles, dorsoventral axis. The overall increase in the thoracic volume causes a similar increase in pulmonary volume. An increase in pulmonary volume decreases the intrapulmonary pressure to less than atmospheric pressure, which forces the air from outside to move into the lungs, that is inspiration. An increase in pulmonary volume decreases intrapulmonary pressure to less than atmospheric pressure, which forces air from outside to move into the lungs. Increase in pulmonary volume decreases when pulmonary volume increases. So what happened? Intrapulmonary pressure decreases. Then intrapulmonary pressure, when volume increases, the pressure decreases to less than atmospheric pressure. See, pulmonary volume increases, which leads to decrease in intrapulmonary pressure to less than atmospheric pressure. Volume and pressure, the two terms, that's what I want to make you all bring attention to. Volume and pressure. Next. Relaxation of diaphragm and intercostal muscles returns the diaphragm and sternum to their normal position and reduces the thoracic volume. Thereby, the pulmonary volume also comes to relaxation. Wait, I'll read it again. Relaxation of the diaphragm and intercostal muscles return the diaphragm and sternum to their normal position and reduces the thoracic volume and thereby the pulmonary volume. This leads to they will decrease. So this leads to an increase in intrapulmonary pressure. See, volume, पहले वॉल्यूम ज़्यादा था, अब वॉल्यूम कम हो गया है, तो प्रेशर बढ़ गया है. दिस लीड्स टू एन इंक्रीज इन इंट्रापल्मोनरी प्रेशर स्लाइटली अबव द atmospheric pressure, which causes expiration. We have the ability to increase the strength of inspiration and expiration with the help of additional muscles in the abdomen. On an average, a healthy human being breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. This could be a question. The volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated by using a spirometer, which helps in clinical assessment of pulmonary functions. Volume of air involved in breathing movement can be estimated by using a machine. This is a spirometer, and this is the diagram. Air expelled from lungs. Ribs and sternum return to their original position. Diaphragm is relaxed and arch upwards. Volume of thorax decreases. The other diagram was this, where at the time of inspiration, the diaphragms contracted, volume of thorax increased, and ribs and sternum raised. And this is the chart of respiratory volume and capacity. This is the NCRT chart I've just summarized here. The tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, and all that. Look here. Tidal volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration. It is approximately 500 ml. Look, this chart you take the screenshot. This will help you at the end when you understand all these terminologies. Then this chart will be helpful to you for a quick revision. Tidal volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration. It is approximately 500 ml. That is, a healthy man can inspire or expire how much? 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air per minute. Inspiratory reserve volume, additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible inspiration. This averages to 2500 ml to 2500 ml to 3000 ml. What? IRV and ERV, expiratory reserve volume, additional volume of air a person can expire by forcible expiration. This averages to 1000 to 1100 ml. I have mentioned all these here in this chart and I will not make it dirty. Residual volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. This averages to 1100 to 1200 ml. By adding up a few respiratory volumes described above, one can derive various pulmonary capacities which can be used in clinical diagnosis. These were volumes, 4 volumes we read: tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume, and residual volume. Now we'll derive various pulmonary capacities. Inspiratory capacity means total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. This includes tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. IC includes tidal volume plus inspiratory reserve volume. EC, expiratory reserve volume, means total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration, which includes tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. See, in this lecture we are just doing NCERT. We are just doing a one shot NCERT. If you wish, I can bring some lectures which are more than one shot, like in 5 parts or 6 parts, part by part I can bring the lectures, but that will take your a little more time where we can make some notes also. Here I am doing NCERT reading and NCERT one shot revision for quick revision. This is for quick revision of NCERT, but extra points and all the mechanisms well explained here. I'll read NCERT definitely without doubt, but if you want that, you can comment in the comment section below, and please like this session. Please like this session. Total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration is expiratory capacity. Then functional residual capacity, the volume of air that will remain in lungs after normal expiration is functional residual capacity, which includes ERV plus RV. Vital capacity is the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. Vital capacity will include inspiratory reserve volume, tidal volume, and expiratory reserve volume. Vital capacity will include ERV, tidal volume, IRV, which means the maximum volume of air a person can breathe out after a forced inspiration. Total lung capacity is the volume of air that can be accommodated in the lungs at the end of forced inspiration. This includes RV, ERV, TV, and IRV, or the vital capacity plus the residual volume. No space. Look here. Inspiratory capacity nearly equal to how much? Acha, wait, let me show it here only. Look, the total lung capacity will approximately be equal to 6000 ml. 6000 ml. Okay? Why I do not leave some spaces, I imagine. Exchange of gases. Exchange of gases. Now, alveoli are the primary sites of exchange of gases, as I told you. As I told you before, alveoli are the sites of exchange of gases. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissue. So twice will it take place. Once alveoli and between blood and tissue, which was also mentioned in all those processes involved in breathing. About alveoli, I want to tell you something extra. Should I tell or should I leave it? Alveoli. Well, alveoli will have two layers. One layer will be made of white fibrous connective tissue, and second layer will be made of simple squamous epithelium. Pneumocytes are comprised of squamous cells, to which we say pneumocytes. You know, there are nearly 300 million alveoli present in both the lungs. 300 million alveoli. And it is endodermal in origin. And this entire system, this respiratory system, more or less endodermal and mesodermal in origin. So let's move to the topic. O2 and CO2 are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on pressure or concentration gradient. Solubility of gases as well as the thickness of membrane involved in diffusion are also important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. Next important factor, solubility of gases, and second important, thickness of membrane, and first important factor was solubility of gases. Pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure. What is partial pressure? Pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases, and is represented as PO2 or for oxygen and PCO2 for carbon dioxide. Partial pressure of these two gases in the atmospheric air and the two sites of diffusion, they are given. Wait. Yes. This chart, respiratory gas, atmospheric air, alveoli, blood, deoxygenated blood, oxygenated blood and tissue. Now see, atmospheric air will have 159 these parts per, these are partial pressure in millimeter of Hg of oxygen and carbon dioxide at different parts involved in diffusion in comparison to those of atmosphere. Mercury, Hg. Yes. Atmospheric air, then alveoli, deoxygenated blood, oxygenated blood, and deoxygenated blood, you see the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and here also, and in the tissues also. This chart, what should I explain here? This you have to memorize it. This is the diagram of alveoli from NCERT. Air can be drawn in, can be drawn out from here. Look here, these are RBCs, basement membrane, not the basement membrane, the basement substance. मैम आज गलत ज़्यादा पढ़ रही हैं. Basement substance, alveolar wall, one cell thick. Look here, one cell thick alveolar walls, and the blood capillaries. Transport of gases. Blood is the medium of transport of O2 and CO2. About 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood. How much percentage? 97%. This could be a question. The remaining 3% of O2 is carried in the dissolved state through plasma. Nearly 20 to 25% of oxygen in the is transported by RBC, whereas 70% of it is carried out as bicarbonates. See here, 97% O2 is transported by RBC in the blood, 3% is carried into dissolved state through plasma, and 20 to 25% of CO2 is transported by RBC, and 70% of it is carried out as bicarbonate. About 7% of CO2 is carried in dissolved state through plasma. This is nearly 90%, and next 7% is carried through plasma. So oxygen two ways, RBC and through plasma, whereas CO2 will be transported by RBC in the form of bicarbonates and is carried out through plasma in dissolved state also. Transport of oxygen. Hemoglobin is red colored iron containing pigment. Hemoglobin present in RBCs. O2 can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 molecules of oxygen. 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen with hemoglobin is primarily related to partial pressure of oxygen. Partial pressure of CO2, hydrogen, iron concentration and temperature are other factors which can interfere with this binding. So 4 molecules of O2 maximum hemoglobin can carry, and partial pressure of CO2, hydrogen, iron concentration and temperature are other factors which can interfere with the binding of O2 with hemoglobin. And this is the diagram, oxygen dissociation curve. Okay, a sigmoid curve is obtained when percentage saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen is plotted against the PO2. This curve is called oxygen dissociation curve and is highly useful in studying the effect of factors like partial pressure of carbon dioxide, H plus concentration in the alveoli. Okay, now transport of carbon dioxide. CO2 is carried out by hemoglobin as carbamino hemoglobin. 20 to 25%, as I had told you. 20 to 25% is transported by RBC in the form of carbamino hemoglobin. The binding is related to partial pressure of CO2. Partial pressure of oxygen is a major factor which could affect the binding. When partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high and partial pressure of oxygen is low, as in the tissues, more binding of carbon dioxide occurs, whereas when the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low and partial pressure of oxygen is high in the alveoli, dissociation of CO2 from carbamino hemoglobin takes place. Two things here they have said. Please note it. Which is bound to hemoglobin from the tissues is delivered to alveoli. RBCs contain a very high concentration of enzyme, carbonic anhydrase, and minute quantities of same is present in plasma too. And this enzyme facilitates the following reaction in both direction. This reaction is facilitated by which enzyme? This could be a question. Carbonic anhydrase. Carbonic anhydrase. Both ways. At the tissue site where partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high due to catabolism, carbon dioxide diffuses into blood, RBC and plasma and forms HCO3 and H plus. At the alveolar site where PCO2 is low, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to formation of carbon dioxide and H2O. The CO2 trapped as bicarbonate at the tissue level and transported to alveoli is released out as CO2. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of CO2 to the Alveoli. 100 ml of deoxygenated blood will deliver approximately 4 ml of CO2 to the alveoli. Okay, fine. Regulation of respiration. Human beings have a significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm to suit the demands of body tissues. This is done by neural system, a specialized center present in the medulla region of the brain called respiratory rhythm center is primarily responsible for this regulation. Another center present in pons region of the brain called pneumotaxic center can moderate the functions of respiratory rhythm centers. Neural signal from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby alter the respiratory rate. Neural signal from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby alter the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area is situated adjacent to rhythm center which is highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ions. Increase in these substances can activate this center which in turn can signal the rhythm center to make necessary adjustments in the respiratory processes by which these substances can be eliminated. Receptors associated with the aortic arch and carotid artery are also can recognize changes in CO2 and H plus concentration and send necessary signals to the rhythm center for remedial actions. The role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Not significant, insignificant. I'll ask this question. So look here. Human beings have a significant ability to maintain and moderate the respiratory rhythm. ठीक है, यहाँ तक सही है, चल रहा है. Neural system is responsible for this. Now, in the medulla region of brain, there is respiratory rhythm center which is responsible for this regulation. Another center is present in pons of the brain called pneumotaxic center which can moderate the functions of respiratory rhythm center. Pons. Okay, pneumotaxic center in pons. Neural signals from these centers can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby alter the respiratory rate. From these centers only our duration of inspiration can vary sometimes. And this is your DIY, do it yourself. This question you have to comment below in the comment section. The first 3 winners I personally will be announcing their names, and today your genetics part 1 is also out, and there you have 2 DIY do it yourself questions. So in together we have 3 DIY. Let's see who wins. In this video you have to comment for this answer only, and in the genetics video you have to go and answer for the genetics DIY. And with this we come to an end of today's session. Please do like, share and subscribe our video on YouTube. You can join Neetshala via the Play Store. You can download the app from Play Store. This is the logo of Neetshala app. You can join us on Telegram. Today there will be a quiz on this topic at 9 p.m. and genetics plus respiration. You can join Neetshala on Telegram, Facebook and Instagram as well. You can solve doubts on Telegram discussion group. Neetshala is available 24/7 for your help. It's up to you how you use and utilize us. And now, ending this session, keep learning and keep posting your doubts. Wish you all the very best.